This movie is a product of its time. No one's speaking to each other. They're all staring into a light source, be it the sun, candle, or fireplace. You know what? Just replace these sources with smartphones, and it's a modern-day romance. He just wants to bone and play Call of Duty, and she just wants to acquire resources. Napoleon Review. I'm not going to go too nuts with this review. I don't know why, but seeing an Apple title card at the start of a movie doesn't really fill me with confidence. But this is our brave new world with tech funding art, so be it. Appropriate, as this movie is a product of its time, that time being now, and yet it's about two characters who were very much products of their time, post-revolutionary France. Maybe their trauma more accurately reflects our current dystopian misanthropy, and therefore maybe my review is too harsh. You decide. I really wanted to like this film because, as people who love movies may or may not know, Napoleon was a holy grail of sorts. It's the movie Stanley Kubrick wanted to make, and he did a lot of prep on his version that never got made. So anyone who's into directing, especially directors, know that getting a studio to back your production of Napoleon is a very, very special opportunity, and I would think should be treated as such. Anyway, the film centers on a fairly young Napoleon Bonaparte, while the French Revolution is in full swing. It follows his rise to power, and centers on his infamous love affair with Josephine, somewhat predictably. And we end with him in exile on St. Helena. That's what the film covers, soup to nuts. For more information on Napoleon and the French Revolution, try Wikipedia. And there's probably a bunch of books too. He's a fascinating character, so I do recommend the journey. Now, the movie. Ridley Scott's movie. Okay, so it takes place in France, obviously. How are they addressing the speech/language aspect? Will the characters speak French with subtitles? Will it be like Spartacus in the traditional Hollywood way of the elites speaking with British accents? Will they do something more radical or modern? Nope. More like Spartacus. Is this a nod to Kubrick? The French all have English accents, and since they're fighting the British, there's a lot of English characters who all have French accents. I'm kidding. They have English accents too. So everyone's got an English accent, except, drumroll, our lead, Joaquin Phoenix, plays Napoleon with a Pasadena accent? San Bernardino accent? Toluca Lake, anyone? He's got an American accent, and maybe it's just me, but it kept taking me out of the movie. Now, there are moments where Phoenix does nail it. He gives a very genuine, humanistic portrayal of Napoleon. His performance in general I thought was well done. And then he speaks. And the cast in general was very good. French accents would have been weird, and if they're speaking French, you gotta have subtitles. I get it. I just would rather they speak the real deal. Speak French. I would find that more immersive than a bunch of French and English people who all sound the same. And then there's Pasadena Phoenix. I will say that I like a lot of the battle footage. The sequences could have been better planned, cinematically, to engage the audience more. We are really in an information inferior position, meaning we don't have certain information regarding the plans of attack. At times that's thrilling. We get a surprise. But other times it feels like Deus Ex Machina. Something's coming out of nowhere to save the French bacon. And it's not always established what is at stake, or how certain events led to definitive conflict. And this brings me to what I don't like, and it's a basic rule of storytelling. Show, don't tell. Telling is boring. Your quote-unquote show is why I'm here, why I bought a ticket. That's the hard part. Showing. Anyone can tell. You buy me the beer if you're gonna tell, because then I have to sit and listen to it. But at least I got a beverage out of the deal. You're putting on a show? Then I gotta buy the ticket. That's how it's supposed to work. That's the exchange here. Don't tell, show. Anyone at the bar can tell. It's your job to show. And it's hard, man. I get it. I've written a bunch of screenplays. It is hard work to get it right. But right off the bat in this movie, they tell me that Nappy Biscuits, is what I'm probably going to call Napoleon just to keep myself happy. Nappy Biscuits is an ambitious officer. Okay, I mean, I've read that before about Napoleon. And this is an important trait when dealing with this historical character. You don't rise up to the rank of emperor by accident. If we're at the very beginning of your movie, and you're establishing this character, how about showing me something that the character does that exemplifies this major trait, which, not to get too technically screenwritery, but this major trait should probably tie into the character's major flaw, which should probably lead to the character's downfall, and in this case, Napoleon's exile. Or traditionally in movies, at least it leads to a moment of profound change. An epiphany, as they say in the biz. This is important. This is the beginning of the show, of the story, of the journey we are on. Show me. Show Nappy making an active decision, taking action that will demonstrate he's ambitious. There is a battle scene at the beginning where he leads an attack on a British fort, and he comes across as daring, courageous, determined. But none of this is particularly ambitious, outside of a military officer seeking to accomplish his mission. And this was a sign of what was to come. Scenes would open with either him being promoted for something that happens off screen, or with his already having accomplished this step up the ladder, a payoff without a setup. I'd argue that the film could have been better with one or two instances of the audience seeing Napoleon plan, plot, or conspire to get ahead, or to use events to facilitate his rise. Maybe complicate said plot, then have it succeed. The payoff. The same goes for what he's most renowned for. Military strategy and tactics. This should be fun. Cinematically speaking, an area that could really embellish the viewing experience. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section, but I've yet to see a movie that outdoes Braveheart in this regard. See the Battle of Stirling. And this brings me to Josephine. Well played by Vanessa Kirby. Direction and script notwithstanding. Where have all the good writers gone? Are we not ever again gonna have well-written dialogue, witty banter, or clever flirting? Give me something snappy, man. Show me this guy has something going on. I get the longing and staring at her beauty that has enraptured him, but at some point, enough is enough, and we have to see him put forth some verbal utterance that will convince her he's not too far off the spectrum, that he's not a thoughtless goon, and for her too, so that we have some respect for her by seeing that she respects herself. If we're to buy in to this relationship as one of passion, and that she's not just a social climbing floozy, then at some point, and that point better be sooner rather than later, we have to see them soda shop, joust, banter, flirt. Show us that there's something there to their relationship and that it's not just transactional. This movie is a product of its time. No one's speaking to each other. They're all staring into a light source, be it the sun, candle, or fireplace. You know what? Just replace these sources with smartphones and it's a modern-day romance. Or non-romance. He just wants to bone and play Call of Duty, and she just wants to acquire resources. There's no poetry, there's no romance, there's not one interesting, beautiful, compelling, or engaging thought between these two people. The relationship is reduced to primal needs. We are nothing but a sum of our basest urges. I find that depressing and uninteresting about the culture that I currently live in, and I find it depressing and uninteresting about this film. There are many scenes with Nappy and Josephine where they look bored and uninterested in each other, and might as well be staring into their social media feeds. The lovemaking/sex scenes, she literally looks like she's annoyed, which makes me think she's not interested in him, other than the fact that he's a powerful figure in this post-revolutionary, decapitation-happy landscape. There is no passion. This relationship is purely transactional. I know their relationship was a famously rocky one, but research suggests there was more back and forth than is presented here. And this isn't a documentary. This is a movie. And as Stanley Kubrick said to Jack Nicholson, yeah, there's real, but is it interesting? Is Napoleon a plotting, scheming, heartless jerk? And so is she? And they're made for each other? Then play that up. Make that the angle of your take on the Napoleon story. But don't try to shoehorn in true love when this is a modern tale of soulless, empty dissatisfaction with humanity, and our characters using resource acquisition to fill the holes in their hearts, just like the two products of a cultural revolution that they are. Damn, I wonder if this was Ridley's pitch. Bottom line, it looks good. It's got a few moments, but Joaquin's Tucson, Arizona accent, the lack of proper setup and payoff of Napoleon's rise and military bearing, and the bewildering presentation of his love life just didn't do it for me. I give it a hearty, can't say I recommend it, but if you're a fan of period pieces, it might be a nice way to kill a rainy afternoon. Thanks for clicking in.
You better subscribe, kid.